All right, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to We've Read the Document Subscribe Star Stream. I'm your host, Brisson. Thank you for being a subscriber. This is news and views from the shed, week of July the 2nd, 2021. I hope everybody's doing well out there. So first story we have for you today is NSA says Tucker Carlson has never been an intelligence target of the agency. The National Security Agency issued a statement on Tuesday claiming that Tucker Carlson was never a target of NSA investigations in response to allegations that the agency was spying on the Fox News host. Carlson discussed the statement on air Tuesday night along with a phone call he had with the NSA about his allegations that they were spying on him. So let's play it.
Administration's efforts to monitor and intimidate this show. On Sunday, we heard from a whistleblower within the U.S. government, someone with direct knowledge, who warned us that the NSA was reading our electronic communications, our emails and texts, and was planning to leak them selectively in an effort to hurt us. This person had details from my emails that no one outside the recipient could have known. So it was not a delusion, it was entirely real. In fact, it was confirmed. After the show last night, after we announced this, other news organizations acted as if it's totally normal for heavily politicized intel agencies to spy on and threaten journalists they disagree with. It's no big deal. Stop whining. But it is a big deal. It is completely wrong.
It is a problem. As a journalist, it is an issue. But let's see if Tucker says this is a problem for everyone. The NSA is spying on everyone. The government is spying on everyone. Remember when Trump was upset that he was being spied on? Did he ever say, hey, they're spying on you, the American people, and I'm going to put a stop to that? No, he never did. He only complained about him being spied on, that he was spied on during the election.
Not to mention illegally. And this is hardly the first time the so-called intelligence community has done something like this. They've done an awful lot of it. Look it up. If we let them continue to do it, it's the end of democracy. Democracy can't function with semi-independent, highly politicized intel agencies. It's really dangerous. For its part, the Biden administration just ignored the story. They did not deny the story. They can't. They know that it's true. Today, the president's flack was asked about it on Air Force One. Here's the exchange.
Tucker Carlson said that the NSA is spying on him. Is the administration aware of any espionage or listening efforts on U.S. citizens by the NSA, and is Tucker Carlson one of them?
Well, the NSA, as I think you're well aware, I'm sure everyone's aware, everyone on this plane is aware, I should say, is an entity that focuses on foreign threats and individuals who are attempting to do us harm on foreign soil. So that is their purview, but beyond that, I would point you to the intelligence community.
Yeah, the NSA only looks at foreign threats, you guys. No domestic threats, or, not spying on every single person in the United States in some form or capacity.
Reading the Wikipedia entry. Ask them! But here's what to notice. No denial. Of course, she's right that the NSA is chartered to spy on foreigners, not on Americans. That's illegal. And yet the NSA does routinely spy on Americans. It won't call it spying. That's exactly what it is. Millions of Americans.
I agree.
And sometimes it does it for political reasons. And everyone knows this. Everyone, including sitting members of the Intel Committee. Some of them are paranoid about their own communications. That's true. In Washington, this is just considered fine. But it's not fine. It is dangerous and it's wrong. Some faceless hack in a powerful government spy agency decides he doesn't like what you think, so he's going to hurt you, and there's nothing you can do about it? That could happen to you. And when it does happen, trust us. NBC News will call you a delusional QAnon conspiracy theorist for complaining about it.
That's interesting that he went in that direction. Huh.
Well, this morning we decided to just call Paul.
I will say this, Tucker at least is doing better than Trump, because Trump was never like, they're spying on you guys as well. At least Tucker's saying that. And he's true. Now, look, I've done multiple shows on why Tucker ain't our guy. All right? I've done multiple shows. And I'm not saying just because he's mentioning this, he's our guy. He's not. He's giving a little bit of the truth to make the bitter poison pill, the medicine go down of what he preaches. I mean, this past week on Tucker Carlson Tonight, he talked about that everybody should read Alexander Dugin because that's what they're reading in the high echelons of the Russian military. Instead of, debating critical race theory in our military, which is asinine, they're reading Alexander Dugin, which in my opinion is also asinine.
Nakasone directly. He's the highly political left-wing four-star general who runs the NSA. The receptionist refused to put us through. We're American citizens, though, so we kept trying, because it's our right. This afternoon, we got his direct line, and we tried again. Nakasoni's assistant seemed shocked that someone whose email the NSA is reading would dare to call the director himself. "Shut up, Surf, obey!" So they told us Nakasoni just wasn't there. Then, just minutes before air tonight, the NSA sent us an infuriatingly dishonest formal statement, an entire paragraph of lies written purely for the benefit of the intel community's lackey.
So the NSA said a statement on June 28, 2021. Tucker Carlson alleged the National Security Agency has been monitoring our electric communications, is planning to leak them to attempt to take this show off the air. I don't believe that. I think that's WWE work wrestling type stuff to make Tucker seem legitimate and credible. This allegation is untrue. Tucker Carlson has never been an intelligence target of the agency, and the NSA has never had any plans to try to take his program off the air. I do believe the second part. The first part, they're monitoring everybody. NSA has a foreign intelligence mission. We target foreign powers to generate insights on foreign activities that could harm the United States with limited exceptions and emergency. NSA may not target a United States citizen without a court order that explicitly authorizes the targeting. Oh, well, under the Patriot Act, that's not true, NSA. Good job. You're lying. You're lying out your teeth. You monitor us all to different capacities and to different degrees.
At CNN and MSNBC, all those people they hire with the titles on the screen. They also tweeted it out a few minutes ago. Now, last night on the show, we made a very straightforward claim. NSA has read my private emails without my permission, period. That's what we said. Tonight's statement from the NSA does not deny that. Instead, it comes with this non sequitur. In part, quote, Tucker Carlson has never been an intelligence target of the agency. Okay, glad to know. But the question remains, did the Biden administration read my personal emails? That's the question that we asked directly to NSA officials when we spoke to them about 20 minutes ago in a very heated conversation. Did you read my emails? And again, they refused to say. Again,
Tucker's afraid because there's some emails between him and David Brock and James Alphonsus. Oh!
And again. And then they refused even to explain why they couldn't answer that simple question. We can't tell you, and we won't tell you why we can't tell you. My emails. And the message was clear. We can do whatever we want. We can read your personal texts. We can read your personal emails. We can send veiled threats your way to brush you back if we don't like your politics. We can do anything. We're our own country, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. We're in charge. You're not. Orwellian does not begin to describe the experience. It was like living in China. But we should get used to it. Now that the Biden administration has classified tens of millions of patriotic Americans, the kind who served in the military and fly flags in front of their homes, as potential domestic terrorists, white supremacist saboteurs, we're going to see a whole lot more of this kind of thing.
All right, so that's interesting. That's really interesting. I don't trust Tucker. I think there's a spin to this. I think there's a work to this. So truth comes out, but a whole bunch of lies and disinformation, too, everything. So at least Tucker said they're spying on all Americans. You know, congratulations, Tucker. You went farther than Donald Trump did. Good job, bud. New leadership is needed. Trump mocks GOP senators failing to negotiate with White House. Former President Donald Trump released a statement Tuesday blasting Senate Republicans for negotiating with the White House. Interestingly enough, the Republicans are working with the Democrats very strongly when they're supposed to be diametrically opposed to each other, especially now more than ever since the January 6th event. That's what most pundits want you to believe, but no, that's not the case. Former president mocked recent efforts by Senate Republicans to reach a bipartisan infrastructure deal with Biden administration, suggested that they should pursue new leadership other than Senate Minority Leader, Cocaine Mitch McConnell. So, of course, so sad to see the Rhino Republican senators go back and forth to the White House. Here we have State of America, President Donald John Trump, from the now former office of president. So sad to see certain Rhino Republican senators go back and forth to the White House and continually get nothing done for infrastructure or anything else. Well, why didn't they get anything done when you were trying to do infrastructure, Trump? When will they learn that they're being played with? I thought you were the great negotiator. Used by the radical left and only bad things can happen. Should have never lost the Senate in the first place. Thanks, Mitch. New leadership is needed and fast. That's just to continue the WWE work that left and right aren't working together, that they're not both on the same. To some degree, working for the same goals of screwing us over, the American populace. The Dan Bongino announces new anti-cancel culture payment platform. Dan Bongino announced the launch of a new payment platform, AlignPay, to combat cancel culture and big tech tyranny and ensure businesses are never denied financial access over their political beliefs. The launch was announced earlier today on the Dan Bongino Show podcast. I wonder if I can join AlignPay, you guys, and talk crap about Dan Bongino and still get paid. I wonder. After former President Donald Trump was kicked off payment processing platform Stripe in January for his role in the January 6th Capitol attack, Bongino went to work creating alternative organizations that have expressed opinions that make them vulnerable to disapproval by big tech companies. It's focused on cancel culture, so Stripe is our target here. You need to come to us or you're under a very real threat of being canceled, Bongino told the Washington Examiner. Anyone's going to engage in any of this cancel culture totalitarianism, we're going to expose and offer our services to the people you cancel, he said. So, here we go. The service was created and funded by Dan Bongino, Jeff Wernick. I remember Jeff Wernick, I think he had something to do with Bitcoin, right? He's kind of like in that right-wing nexus. He was a Bitcoin investor. No? Huh. I thought he was. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong person. Give me a minute. Yeah, Parler investor Jeffrey Wernick is not your typical tech investor. So he invested in, and he's an anarcho-capitalist where he talks about Bitcoin. Yes, I was right. So Jeffrey Wernick, who invested in Parler, of course we know that Parler is a big investor, and the big people behind that was the Mercer family. So my guess is the Mercer family is also behind Bongino's AlignPay. I guess we'll see. That's a speculation. Eric Berger, let's see who this guy is. Find out any information on him. Nothing that I could see. Let's see here. Jake Hoffman. Just looks like this is another Mercer front with a Wernick being involved, which wouldn't surprise me. I was going to make that speculation anyway. I don't know who Jake Hoffman is. There's not really any information when you search for him in AlignPay. But I definitely will be paying attention to this in the future. Donald Trump also has recently come to Rumble. And since he's come to Rumble, then they're really cracked down on anybody who talks about Israel. That was supposedly part of Kushner's deal to get Trump on Rumble. Was that no longer there would be any, anybody would be able to talk negatively against Israel or anything that would be labeled quote-unquote anti-Semitic. Could not be on Rumble anymore, which is extremely interesting. So it's more than a business to us. It's a movement. Many people are afraid of speaking out against tech platforms because they control their ability to earn income, Wernick told the Washington Examiner. AlignPay's target Stripe, which handles card payments for millions of online businesses and organizations, chose to kick Trump's campaign website, online fundraising operations off its platforms January for violating its policies against encouraging violence through its role in the January 6th Capitol attack. So there you go, AlignPay. We'll keep you up to date on that one. My guess is there's some Mercer money behind it. So I found this was really weird that because I checked the Bongino report just to keep up with the Biden administration, just to see what narratives are being spun over there on Bongino report. And I checked Drudge. I still check a lot of different websites for news. But I noticed one of these things under national security wasn't like the other, and it was Israel is a secret nuclear weapon superpower that no one talks about. It's very interesting with Dan Bongino being a very strong Zionist. Why was this article in a Bongino report, and a little excerpt from the article, through extensive aid from the United States and Europe, as well as cooperation developing missiles for Israel. So the article was very anti against the secret nuke program that Israel has. So I wonder why that was on the Bongino report. That's just an aside. From Stars and Stripes, there's a theory that an at-sea shock test caused a condo collapse in Florida. Experts say why that is wrong. People continue to pine for answers after last week's horrific condo collapse in Surfside, Florida. Maybe weeks or months before the actual cause is known, but that doesn't stop non-experts from coming up with their own hypothesis. One pervasive question some observers have is if the United States quote-unquote shock test if a new warship off the Florida coast on June 18th may have triggered a tragedy a few days later. At approximately 1:30 a.m. on June 24th, Ponce Inlet is roughly 250 miles north of Surfside. The USS Gerald R. Ford was positioned about 100 miles from Ponce Inlet in Volusia County when a 40,000-pound explosive was detonated in the water. Official videos provided to the public on Twitter shows the explosion was so intense that it registered a 3.9 in earthquake terms. Investigators are going to check this out, said Abiyu Aguirre, a professor of forensic engineering at Drexel University. I'm sorry I butchered your name. Told the Miami Herald last week. Paul Early, a Golden, Colorado-based seismologist with the United States Geological Survey National Earthquake Information Center, said he doesn't believe the two incidents are related. Given the size of the explosion, the distance from the building, and the time between the explosion and the collapse, we do not see any reasonable mechanism for the Navy explosion on June 18th to have triggered the collapse of the Miami Beach area condo on June 24th, he said. There are about 300 earthquakes of similar size to the Navy explosion that could continue. I cannot pronounce words that have saved my life sometimes. Contiguous U.S. every year, which just means a continent of the United States, none of which have triggered a major building collapse. Earl added that 3.9 is not classified as a large earthquake. California has those quite often. On Monday, Lieutenant Commander Desiree Frame, Public Affairs Officer of the USS Gerald R. Ford, debunked the theory of a connection between the collapse and the battleship's ship shock trials off the Florida coast. We see nothing to correlate the shock trial test with the terrible event last week in South Florida. She told the Miami Herald in an email, certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected by that. Frame went on to assure any fears that public has about these tests. I can assure you that when we do the shocks trials, there are a wide variety of environmental and safety factors are taken into account, she wrote. We know we need to do this kind of testing for the hull for our major ships like aircraft carriers to support opportunity to evaluate the structural integrity of the hull, its ability to handle a blast of that size, but choosing a location, the depth of water, the time of day, marine life migration patterns, etc. There's a lot of factors that are considered to make sure that it's safe as it possibly can be. As for the current theory as to what caused the catastrophe, 6 engineer experts told the Miami Herald Saturday, based on the current available evidence, including surveillance video, building plans, inspection reports, and chilling account of the residents who saw the pool turn into a sinkhole, a structural column or concrete slab beneath the pool deck likely gave way, collapsing the garage below, causing the tower to cave in and on itself. As of Tuesday morning, 11 were declared dead in the collapse, with dozens still missing. That's tragic. God bless those people. So we still don't know what happened with the condo. There's been some reports put out that the condo had been, criticized for years. The owner of the condo that the condo was sinking into the ground, that it was losing its foundation. It was failing inspections. So who knows? Maybe maybe the earthquake could, but I mean likely not. But who knows? But then again, the next thing that I'm going to show you, something happened. Shout outs to Dave Troy on Twitter. Actually, this is a good logic chain there, bud. So here we have Israeli commander. This is the most difficult site I've worked on. So we had the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, at the Florida condo, and they met with the mayor. I got pictures of them and Ron DeSantis together. So why is there a foreign military at an active site, especially Israel? Didn't we have enough of our own police and first responders and rescuers that could have helped the search? Has anything like this ever happened before outside of a major event like 9/11, which this is not comparable to 9/11? Am I missing something here? So, Dave writes, hey, so anyone know why Israeli military troops are on active deployment in Miami? On whose authorization? Is this some sort of thing that happens in a bizarre world existence now? So, yeah, okay. So what was, commander of the Israeli National Rescue Unit, what was Israeli troops? What were they doing down there? And who called them up? Who told them to come help? If our own military's not involved, I guess the National Guard probably would be, but they're allowed to be. But if our own military is not involved outside the National Guard, then what is this? So that's really interesting. All right. Agency that invested the fall of the Twin Towers could probe Florida condo collapse, from the New York Post. A federal agency that investigated the fall of the Twin Towers is on the ground in Florida to determine whether to probe last week's deadly collapse of the Champlain Tower. A new report states scientists and engineers from the National Institute of Standards and Technologies arrived at the site on Friday to begin collecting data, the Miami Herald reported. A little-known agency, which is part of the Department of Commerce, is tasked with investigating disasters that either result in a substantial loss of life or potential to cause such destruction, spokesman Jennifer Herrego told the outlet. The agency's power comes from National Construction Safety Team Act, a federal law passed after 9/11, which allows it to probe substantial building failures while focusing on recommending changes to code standards and practices to ensure similar disasters do not recur. So this is quite interesting. Then they go on to talk about the collapse itself. And so we'll keep monitoring this. I mean, the QAnon people, the QAnon operation is trying to spin that McAfee's, the collapse of the condo had something to do with McAfee's kill switch, which is ludicrous, but that's what the spin they're trying to push. Here we go from Vanity Fair. The secret history of Gavin McInnes. Okay, so let's read some of this. On election night in 2016, 4 years before the January 6th storming of the U.S. Capitol, the Proud Boys threw a party. That November evening, the Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes, my former boss, summoned his followers to the Gaslight Lounge in New York's Meatpacking District to watch the returns. Tonight, we either take back the country or we lose the country to the establishment. He told the attendees a mixture of Trumpist trolls, frat boys, and sort of amped-up nationalist types that call themselves Western chauvinists. McInnes had just created his gang months before, but as someone who always predicts trends, he could see where this would lead. If Donnie wins, he bellowed into the distorting microphone, the Proud Boys will own America. We'll just walk into the White House. They began chanting, USA, 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 the same way Proud Boys were breaching the Capitol complex in January. A few back in 2016 realized how far the group would go, soon establishing chapters in 45 states. Members eventually indicted on charges ranging from civil disorder to conspiracy and Washington, D.C. rampage. McInnes had founded that he would become, according to the Kenyan government, a terrorist entity. At 2:40 a.m., when Fox News decreed that Donald Trump had won, the crowd in the Gaslight erupted. Howling men in MAGA caps hoisted an ebullient McInnes into the air, crowd surfing him across the throng. But life had been so joyous in the 8 years since he left Vice, the Montreal magazine media conglomerate he co-founded in 1994 at age 24. He lost so much in the intervening years, friends, fistfights, and respective peers, a stake in the Vice Media Group's future profits, presumably countless brain cells. Do you really need these jabs? Come on, if you're a journalist, like really? In his departure letter from Vice, he vowed his ideas that one day blossom into fruition like 100 human vaginas in the presence of God's boner. Okay. If McInnes said that, he's hashtag our guy, right? Now, why do people think these people are... I don't get it. Now he was an illegal immigrant from Canada living in the States on a green card, surrounded by 100 sweaty dudes, some waving cocktail napkins, sized U.S. flags. That's right. The Pride Boys. McInnes didn't simply feel vindicated. He believed that he was the pinnacle of a new world. I feel like Clark Kent, he tweeted. I'm just a guy in a suit, but if you have a problem, I'll be happy to punch you in the face. Interviewed today for this story, he told me that Trump's victory party is one of the greatest nights in my life. In the 1990s, McInnes was hardly a far-right menace. He was a tree-planting vegetarian, a druggie anarchist, and a self-described dogmatic feminist. Some people who knew him still regard him as one of the funniest people they ever met. He counted comedians such as David Cross and Sarah Silverman as friends, both of whom contributed articles to Vice. Neither agreed to interview requests, but over time, McInnes accelerated his drift to the political fringe. In 2003, when Vice was largely an extension of McInnes' psyche, Jimmy Kimmel told the New York Times that his brand of humor is what I would do if there were no standards or practices on television. The whole Vice gestalt was so laced with sarcasm that the Village Voice called it a brilliant hipster self-parody. McInnes' early provocations were widely perceived as commentary on hate rather than hate itself. When his stance began to grow more blatantly xenophobic, he turned to stand-up, a medium that allowed him to claim he was only joking around. Just kidding had long been his default position, but couching his beliefs in humor didn't hide the deadly serious nature of his politics. His true intentions were tattooed right on his back. It's a tableau depicting a jellyfish with a Chiang Kai-shek and Fidel Castro, two immigrants he once proclaimed that came into a country, wiped out its previous cultures, and started new prosperous ones. The days of the West are numbered, and I will be impetus that destroys it. I am turning America inside out from the inside in. I don't know if Cuba's doing well after Fidel Castro took them over, but okay, whatever. By 2016, his unseemly pronouncements had become part of the American political discourse. He made an overt statement on his webcast, "Can you call for violence generally? Because I am." He also declared a textbook example of hate speech born on incitement. "Fighting solves everything. We need more violence from the Trump people. Trump supporters, choke a motherfucker." I don't think that's hate speech. I think that's calling for violence. They don't necessarily say who to choke. Going on to use derogatory terms about trans people and women. "Get your fingers around the windpipe." The explosive-laden comment was among the reasons he would ultimately get deplatformed from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. November 2018, he reluctantly stepped down as leader of the Proud Boys. But then by then, he already lit a match and passed his torch. A peer-reviewed Bard College study this year determined that based on the analysis of public statements, the rhetoric spouted by McGinnis is actually fascist political action. No longer the make-believe insurgent he'd been in his punk days, the Canadian originator of the Plow Boys had become at 50 a speckled beard, a speckle with gray, a fever dream incarnate of the tattoo on his back. Not unlike his quote-unquote good friend Roger Stone, the Trump crony, and not instantly pardoned felon who had Nixon's face emblazed between his shoulder blades, McGinnis wanted to subvert things. He wanted to cause chaos. He wanted to break America and remake his imaginings. This account, based on the first-hand observations and interviews with McGinnis' friends and former colleagues, as well as McGinnis himself, is a forgotten backstory of how a wisecracking media maverick became a well-known and influential hate-monger, to quote the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I worked aside McGinnis at the start of Vice in 1994, becoming the magazine's editor shortly after it moved from Montreal to New York in 1999. Though McGinnis immediately struck me as someone to avoid outside work, nothing then indicated he would hatch an organization as vitriolic and violence-prone as the street-brawling Proud Boys. He and I were never friends. Founding editor Surush Alvi, who remains at Vice Media with the title of founder, brought me on board as a writer at the same time as McGinnis, and when I stepped down in early 2001, it was largely because of McGinnis' toxic attitude. By then, his title was co-founder. Vice's third co-founder, Shane Smith, was integral to the arc of McGinnis' life. He was, before their very public falling out, McGinnis' bandmate, roommate, rival, and best friend. Close since the age of 12, they shared everything from mescaline, then the Canadian name for PCP or horse tranquilizer, to lovers. How tight were they? A 2002 book they co-authored, The Vice Guide to Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, claims that McGinnis once unwillingly squeezed his penis into the same condom as Smith's during a threesome. Oh, God. Ugh. Generate. Smith today serves as executive chairman of Vice Media. He's considered an internet age pioneer, having expanded an indie magazine into a global powerhouse. He's sometimes referred to as Citizen Shame, along with his ex-colleagues, as much as a Hearst-like legacy as a medium baron, huckster, and former purveyor of yellow journalism as a Xanadu-like home in Santa Monica. In April, Smith's wife, Tamika, filed for a divorce, and the mansion was sold for $48.7 million, the approximate amount according to Wall Street. The Vice Media lost 2019. Smith declined to be interviewed for this story. The company provided following statements to Vanity Fair. Vice and Gavin parted ways in 2008, many years before Gavin founded the Proud Boys. Vice unequivocally condemns white supremacy, racism, and any form of hate, and showed a fearless bright light of award-winning journalism on extremism. The alt-right and hate groups around the world has created one of the most inclusive, diverse, and equitable companies in media. Well, there's a lot of virtue signaling. Our respective records of the last decade and a half speak for themselves. Vice News, in fact, has been unflinching in its extensive, clear-eyed coverage of the Proud Boys. Media executive Nancy Dubach, but they're platform boosting the Proud Boys. They're all in it together. It's fucking ridiculous. Took up the role of CEO in 2018 after Vice Media began to buckle in the Me Too era, triggered by the New York Times sexual harassment expose in which the founders apologized for the company's detrimental boys club culture. Well, yeah, of course. They stand up against white supremacy, racism, any form of hate, all this virtue signaling up top, but of course, they're all garbage human beings too. Imagine that. They all are. I mean, I understand no one's perfect, but good God, man, some of the leftist people that like to hold their nose up like their shit don't stink could be some of the most degenerate people in the world. Granted, so could the conservatives too as well. Don't get me wrong. Though neither Smith nor McGinnis typically comment on each other due to the terms of separation agreement. The latter recently told CNN that he still haunts Smith's company like Benquino's ghost, lies, betrayal, greed. There's a Macbethian whiff to be entangled narratives of McGinnis and Smith. But even Bacquo gets sacrificed to the volatile ambition of Macbeth, his former brother-in-arms. McGinnis would have to more in common with Coriolanus, a violence for violence sake fame lord whose opportunism outweighs genuine political convictions. Shakespearean or not, McGinnis started both Vice magazine and Proud Boys, and one metastasized into the other. Gavin Miles McGinnis was born in English to Scottish parents in 1970s. His family immigrated to Ontario when he was 5, settling in the suburban Ottawa. In high school, he formed a gang called the Monks, whose guys nicknamed Pig Al and Pukey Stallion. Among the dozen-odd outcasts in the crew, McGinnis' two best friends, Eric Deargrass and Steve Durand. As kids, they said McGinnis' predominant characteristic was his recklessness. A super radical shit disturber, Durand told me, and to provoke an extreme reaction. Was there any foreshadowing that we go on to form a group of extremists of Proud Boys? Gavin was into making rules that you had to abide by. We call it Digress. Explained that one rule McGinnis devised as a teenager has since become codified as a Proud Boys bylaw. The clown's second-degree initiation right for adrenaline control involves naming 5 breakfast cereals while being punched in the arms. The monks did the same thing. We all beat the shit out of you until you can say 5 breakfast cereals, Digress said. The culture of our gang was that if you were ever earnest or vulnerable, you lost all credibility. So it's extremely interesting. So, he's pushing the envelope as Vice, showing the most degenerate drug use, sex, whatever you can think of, right? So, of course, that's counterculture at the time, and now what's counterculture is to be conservative. Now, granted, McGinnis takes it a step further, if it's conservatism and brings it to a place where it's all for the behest of liking Israel too, nonetheless, right? So, you have misogyny with McGinnis to some degree. You have... There's some good things in the Proud Boys, right? I mean, there is a loss of camaraderie between males that's happened in our modern culture for the past few decades. And so that, and if you want to, platform Western ideals and you believe that houses should be a one-income house, if we could ever go back to that. I mean, capitalism's pretty much destroyed that. Crony capitalism. Then, okay, fine, whatever. Like, there's some of the things that the Proud Boys say, sure, you can argue it's just, conservatism. But they take it to the extremes, and they're extremist organization full of nothing but feds and their love for Israel and toxic culture too as well there with the Proud Boys. So, and it's McGinnis is probably just a chaos magician and a crap stirrer. So does he really believe what he's preaching? Probably not. But it pays. He's probably a Fed or government operative. Being involved in the January 6th event and pushing people for the God Emperor Trump is, of course, abhorrent. Leading lambs to a slaughter. I'm no fan of McGinnis. Don't get me wrong when I say that. I'm saying that, the left wants to, paint the Proud Boys as being the Order of the Nine Angles. They're not. Are there issues with the Proud Boys? Of course. But they make them out to be Satan incarnate. And it's like, yeah, but the Order of Nine Angles is way worse. It's just, this is whom they choose to platform boost. McGinnis and the monks were stoner freaks on a different planet. Entirely the Carpies rural farm lads for Carp River. Nobody wanted us to show up their party because when we were guys doing drugs, we always like to fuck shit up a little bit, said Digress. Nicknamed Dog Boy, moving from Bong, said of the monks. By age 15, were dropping acid and huffing Pam cooking spray. Oh, boy. 1986, a police officer came to a school to screen the PSA about the dangers of drunk driving, and McGinnis relates his 2012 autobiography. The students of Earl of March Secondary School watched a sobering account of a young woman paralyzed in the accident. During the Q&A the following, McGinnis took the microphone. Why do you consider being in a wheelchair so horrible, he asked the officer. My mother is in a chair and has been her whole life, and our family doesn't see her as some kind of tragedy. That was a lie, but also revealed his affinity for darkly unfunny, identity-based jokes. At an early age, he was both a class clown and a very natural manipulator, Digress explained. I mean, it's dark humor. Humor's subjective. McGinnis Dickrus added, we'd use him and Durand as the fall guys for his jokes when girls were around. We called ourselves the Cardboard Boys guys because we were just these cutouts that he would use for props for a show. Later in life, several people would become close to with McGinnis, come to understand a similar dynamic, most notably his two partners at Vice, Smith and Alvey. So then it goes on to the origins of Vice, and him being the University of Ottawa. It's a good read. I'm not going to read the rest. I want to see one part of it, though. Let's see if I can find it. So McGinnis still drinks quite often. He watched the Capitol riot on TV like everyone else. I thought, what the fuck have you imbeciles done now, he said. They're not the brightest bulbs in the tree. They're not exactly sophisticated. At one point, of course, he's walking it back now. At one point, he mentioned that he warned his cohorts, you're going to get shot. Someone's going to die. Do not go. Oh, come on. Bull crap. Insisting on march on Washington was an obvious trap, which it is. Just as he cautioned marchers attending the deadly 2017 white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, which was organized by Proud Boys. So, it's all... In hindsight's 2020, right, McGinnis? So here we have 12-year-old Maddie was enrolled in the Pfizer COVID-19 clinical trial. So let's have Maddie's mother discuss what happened. I'm just gonna play it, just playing it. I'm not giving any commentary, just playing it. Okay, it's her jabby jab update.
On January 20th, Maddie received her second dose of the Pfizer COVID vaccine as a participant in the clinical trial for 12 to 15-year-olds. All three of our kids volunteered and were excited to participate in the trial as a way to help us all return to normal life. My husband works in the medical field and I have a degree in electrical engineering. We are pro-vaccine and pro-science, which is why we agreed to let Maddie and her two older brothers volunteer for the trial. Before Maddie got her final dose of the vaccine, she was a healthy 12-year-old who got straight A's and had lots of friends. She had a life. She was energetic. She was not like this. Although she does still have lots of friends. Upon receiving the second shot, Maddie immediately felt pain at the injection site. And over the next 24 hours, she developed severe abdominal and chest pain. And the way she described the chest pain, and I quote, "It feels like my heart is being ripped out through my neck." She had painful electrical shocks down her neck and spine that forced her to walk hunched over. She had extreme pain in her fingers and toes. It actually made them turn white, and they were cold whenever you touched them. She had edema. So my husband immediately took her to the ER as instructed by the vaccine trial nurse administrator, which is what we were instructed to do. Her blood was taken for a renal profile and tested. She was checked for appendicitis, which she did not have, and given an IV with some medicine, then sent home. However, in the discharge papers from the Children's Hospital ER that she went to, the diagnosis stated adverse effect of vaccine initial encounter.
God bless Maddie. God bless Maddie's family. Of course, this came with a disclaimer. Twitter, you couldn't comment to it at the time or the video. I think I'll see if it shows up here. You can now. But they were stopping people from being able to comment. And it came with a little statement that's now gone that said, and I quote, reactions to SARS-CoV-2 vaccines are quite rare. This is a rare example. Yeah, right. But this is very sad. Poor girl is a guinea pig for science. This is what happens to her. Her life is ruined. She would have been better, taking the chance of getting SARS-CoV-2 than being scarred for life. And you can notice the little cross on the mother. There goes a conflicting ideal of believing in God and trusting the science. A slave cannot serve two masters. You have to choose. And this science is a poison pill. All right, everybody. God bless. Take care. See you soon.